This week, Department of Homeland Security made a big announcement when it comes to the violence in Portland. Joining me now is the Acting Deputy Secretary for Homeland Security, Ken Cuccinelli. Welcome back to the show, Secretary. Secretary, tell us a little bit about the negotiation you made with the governor of Oregon.
Sure. So this week, we have been talking with Governor Brown of Oregon. We have not had any cooperation in the last few weeks from the governor, the state police, and it continues with the mayor of Portland. But this week, after talking to the vice president, the governor began talking to us about a partnership. And this week, we're advancing a partnership between her state police and our federal law enforcement officers responsible for protecting the courthouse that you've seen under siege in Portland for the last few weeks. And this is all in the context of 2 months of straight violence in Portland. So this return of partnership, which is what we have everywhere else in the country, is good news for peace and the prospects for it in Portland and for the citizens and businesses of Portland, where there's been tens of millions of dollars of damage by these rioters and criminals. To finally have the state police stepping forward is a real plus.
You know, and I just have to ask, because it strikes me as Portland being the city, the mayor, Ted Wheeler, you point out, has been, I guess, a thorn in the side of the administration, saying, no, you guys leave. You're the reason, pointing the finger at the Trump administration, Homeland Security, for the violence in Portland. Please walk us through that. Is the agitation coming from the federal officers in Portland?
Absolutely not, and I'm glad you asked. So Portland is the only place in America where there has literally been violence every day since the George Floyd murder, which was abominable, and there's plenty to talk about and to protest, for instance, to demonstrate coming out of that situation. That we all want to protect. That does not make the kind of rioting and violence and criminal activity and domestic terrorism we've seen take place in Portland acceptable. In May and June, there was violence every single day after the George Floyd murder. On 3 of those days total, the target of that violence in Portland was federal facilities. In July, it has been every single day. And so after that went on for several days in a row, and we had intelligence that that was going to continue and escalate, we advanced more law enforcement officers there who were not seen. They were inside the courthouse and did not come out for days during their patrol period. So the notion that we somehow escalated this is quite backwards. It's a talking point. The mayor said we caused the violence until we pointed out it had been going on for 5 weeks before any of our additional officers showed up. So he changed his talking point, and the mainstream media has followed suit to say we made it worse. Well, we didn't make it worse. We made it better.
Mr. Secretary, you know, Bill Barr was on Capitol Hill testifying, answering to what looked like a circus going on by the Democrats. But he pointed something out very important. He was asked about what was being used, tear gas, pellets. What are the rules of engagement when a federal officer goes into a city to protect federal buildings like they have been doing in Portland?
So we're there under a statutory command from Congress to protect these buildings. And the rules of engagement essentially are what they are for any other police force. It's you don't escalate the force, you match the level of force you're confronted with as best you can. And we have never gone beyond a less than lethal level of force, things like tear gas, sometimes rubber bullets deployed. Nothing above that level. And those have been deployed in relatively limited fashion. So that's the rules of engagement we've operated under. We have made arrests. We've made scores of arrests. But I'll tell you what tells the tale in terms of our restraint. 240 plus federal officer injuries. You know how many for the violent criminals? 4. 4. So to our 240 plus our medical personnel have rescued a variety of people in Portland who were suffering medical harm, and including one person who had just been arrested for attacking law enforcement officers immediately had a seizure, it was our medical personnel who stepped forward. We had to clear the crowd to take care of this person. That's the attitude of the Department of Homeland Security officers that are there and the quality of their work there. They've done commendable work to protect this seat of justice, and they've been doing it according to the law and within the boundaries of our authority.
You know, and I think that's something that sometimes is lost in the translation, that a lot of times these officers are actually saving lives while they're being, you know, fighting to protect federal buildings and lives inside the buildings as well.
And saving the lives of the people attacking
Right,
them.
that's what I meant. That's the point I was trying to make. Mr. Secretary,
Extraordinary.
who are the people protesting? Who are you finding they are? Is it Black Lives Matter? Is it Antifa? Is it other anarchists? Who are the ones you're running up against?
You know, it's interesting. First of all, we all support peaceful protesting and demonstrations. The president is adamant about that. In the Department of Homeland Security, we've been adamant about that. That's part of what we're protecting, is that opportunity. What we all oppose in this administration, though it's not clear that other politicians oppose it, is violence mixed in or by itself with protesting. And you know, this started after the George Floyd murder, which was appalling, sad, terrible. I could use a whole lot of descriptions, and there's plenty to talk about coming out of that. But the people we're dealing with go by a variety of names, whether it's the organization of Black Lives Matter, whether it's Antifa, whether there are these other groups that go under different and often changing names so that they're harder to keep track of. That's an intentional tactic. They all have two things in common. They dislike the United States. Hate might not be too strong a word. And they're willing to use violence.
All right.
And those are unacceptable when combined in this country. And the federal government will continue to stand against that.
Mr. Secretary, I'm going over and my producer's going to kill me. I just need a 20-second answer from you. Do we have any idea who's funding these groups?
At this time, we have not seen or discovered any coordinated funding effort. We have seen resupply and lots of materials, so we know there's money involved. But we don't know whether it's the people who are coming to riot or whether there are other people funding them. We don't have an answer to that as we sit here.
All right, Ken Cuccinelli, appreciate your time. Thank you again, and stay safe. And to all your officers,
Good to be with
stay
you.
safe. Thank you.